So this is video journal number 2 for my International Public Relations class. I'm trying to do these week by week, so I feel like I'm reflecting on the process and I can my learning can grow, and hopefully you'll be able to see that, or I'll be able to see that when I look back at these video journals. However, I don't really have too much to say this week. Basically, this week was just sort of an extension of last week. I did feel like I learned something and that the conversation was really engaging. However, I probably left it too long since the class to do this reflection, because I kind of can't remember exactly what we talked about. And then I also read the first 2 chapters of the textbook to sort of reinforce that, but that was also a couple of days ago. So I've kind of forgotten a little bit, I guess, what specific things we talked about. I know we talked about truth and what is truth and people's perceptions of truth and does it really exist. And I think it was sort of came from the fact of looking at Edward Bernays and what he did, and how the history of public relations and how it started, and mainly in the basis of propaganda and how that's changing today. It's definitely changing today. Obviously, if I go to work in public relations, I do not see myself doing any form of what I consider or what I define to be propaganda. So I'm hoping that's the truth. What else did we talk about? I just have a flick through of the textbook. Basically, from my understanding or my general gist of what I've taken away so far from this course is basically that public relations, or the Western theories that we sort of are generally taught in public relations, cannot be applied everywhere. It's not going to work. People are different, the cultures are different. Some things that sort of stood out to me were sort of their economy is different, and their economic standing. So that obviously is going to affects people's lives and their lifestyles and what they value and what they don't value. I think other things that we talked about were the government structure and the way that the country in particular is governed, an autocratic as opposed to a democratic government. Obviously, if the country in which the public relations are being practiced is autocratic, it's going to be very different to some of the more free-flowing communication that is seen in countries with a democratically elected government. What other things have I sort of taken away from this so far? I have a feeling that this next coming lesson is going to, hopefully bring this course, I guess, more together in my mind, give it sort of some theory, some background. I think sort of what we've talked about now is sort of general things, general knowledge, sort of building up that background, which I'm guessing will be further confirmed in tomorrow night's class when we look at the circuit of culture, which should be exciting. Take it back, there was one thing that really stood out for me, and it was talking about defining PR and defining international PR. Now, I've taken a few PR subjects throughout my bachelor's degree, and there's always sort of little definitions. They do definitely vary, even in some of the other classes I've taken, marketing and advertising wise, where they refer to PR as a tool, which I know is bad. They also define PR as well, and they do definitely vary. There are some general themes about communication and relationships and strategy, but they definitely vary. And from reading the first couple of chapters of the textbook, I can see that in terms of the definition of international public relations, that definitely varies also. It seems to be that no one could define it, because as we saw in my last journal, we had a lot of trouble and we're struggling to define culture, and that's a major impact on international public relations. So I can see why it'd be difficult to define international public relations. And I liked what we learned about in class and what I did read again in the textbook, and I can't quite find the quote, but basically saying that the definition, maybe I should try and find it. Basically it was talking about the definition of international public relations, and how it's an iterative process and how it's constantly changing, and how that's important, which I totally agree with. And even though I said it stands out, I can't seem to find the exact quote. Yes, I can't find it. I guess you can't define it because practicing international public relations means constantly evolving and changing and reworking your theories and your processes and your tactics to best suit the culture and the learning and the understanding of the people or the publics that you're trying to communicate with, which in the end they are the most important people to an international public relations practitioner. The stakeholders, the people who you're trying to build relationships with, the people who you're trying to communicate with, the people who you're trying to persuade, if that's the goal of the public relations strategy. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm sure I'll finish this video and all of a sudden I'll be like, wow, there's all these things that I want to talk about, and if that happens I will try and record just an extra one. If not, I'll try and definitely record another video straight after tomorrow night's class, or at least on Friday, because I get home way too late on Thursday night, so everything's definitely fresh in my mind.